The proportion of abortions of little black babies far exceeds that of any other racial or ethnic group. That's true. And I've said that I believe a lot of this has to do with population control. Bernie Sanders was caught in 2019 supporting population control when it came to the issue of climate change. Well, if you support the idea of population control when it comes to climate change, you sure as hell support it when it comes to abortion, because that's what effectuates, in part, population control, particularly among minorities, particularly in black areas of the country. These white leftist Marxists and their stereotypes and their bigotry is on display, but nobody dare call them out. But Tim Scott did in this remarkable clip that you're about to see from the other day, when there was a hearing and the Secretary of the Treasury decided she would comment on abortion and its contribution to a vibrant economy, particularly among single women. Go.
Secretary Yellen, thank you for being here this morning. Some of your comments in response to Bob's question I found troubling. And I just from a clarity's sake, did you say that ending the life of a child is good for the labor force participation rate? Giving someone the access, let me just quote what you said, that ultimately increasing access to abortion and reproductive health care allows for our labor force participation rate to continue to increase, that denying women access to abortion increases their odds of living in poverty or need for public assistance. As a guy who was raised by a single mom who worked long hours to keep us out of poverty, I think people can disagree on the issue of being pro-life or pro-abortion, but in the end, I think framing it in the context of labor force participation it just feels calloused.
Let's stop here. Callous. He's 100% right. This is what the left does. They dehumanize. I've been saying, and I'm going to continue to say, on radio and here and anywhere I can be heard. I'm old enough to remember from time to time PBS or other channels which show the miracle of birth. Have you guys ever seen shows, The Miracle of Birth, where a baby is born? Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen a show on a same channel or a similar channel that has shown partial birth abortion? No? Has anybody here? Well, why is that? If it's a right, if that's not a baby, if it's a choice, if only one person's involved, a mother, why doesn't PBS or the Discovery Channel or one of the other 1,000 channels on cable or Netflix or Hulu, why don't they show us and do a special on abortion, how humane it is, how it's a constitutional privacy right? What's the big deal? Here we have birth, which we see, but they censor it. They don't want you to see that the baby has to be turned around in the womb after its brain is sucked out of its skull in order to crush the skull. And the baby's turned around in the womb and pulled out feet first. They don't want you to see that. You know why? Because then you'll know it's a baby. You'll see it with your own two eyes. Then they can conduct their polls. That one program would change the debate in this country forever. Forever. It maybe change the minds of people. Because this isn't about Roe versus Wade or Casey, which are, looking back, relatively modest decisions compared to what goes on in some of these states today. Roe sets up a trimester period where even in the third trimester, the state has an interest. That's what it says, on protecting the baby. because the baby can live. It's viable. Casey says, well, actually, the baby can live even longer because science changes over half a century. We have better sonograms, better technology. We now know that babies are in excruciating, horrific pain when they're aborted. We now know that to be the case when their life is ripped from them. And in states like California and New York and others, there's no trimester issue. There's no viability issue. The baby, its life can be eliminated 1 second before birth. So the question of viability isn't even discussed in these states. Go.
Finding a way to have a debate around abortion in a meeting for the economic stability of our country is harsh. And I'm just surprised that we find ways to weave into every facet of our lives such an important and painful reality for so many people, to make it sound like it's just another 0.4% added to our labor force participation as a result of the issue of abortion. Just, to me, seems harsh.
Well, I certainly don't mean to say what I think the effects are in a manner that's harsh. What we're talking about is whether or not women will have the ability to regulate their reproductive situation in ways that will enable them to plan lives that are fulfilling and satisfying for them. And one aspect of a satisfying life is being able to feel that you have the financial resources to raise a child, that the children you bring into the world are wanted. And
let's stop right there. That you have the financial resources to raise a child. What does that mean? There are babies all over this planet. There's babies all over this country where the woman who bore the baby didn't have significant financial resources. My mother's mother had no financial resources. Same with my father's mother. They were born dirt poor. I mean, and they're not alone. My father, as a kid, after school, they'd walk about a mile down the road and he'd work with his mother at a cigar factory till 1 in the morning when he was about 11, 12 years old. We're talking about life here. You do whatever you can for your child. Put aside whatever it is. I don't even know what that means, the financial resources. To what? The wealthiest country on the face of the earth, every excuse, every lame argument that's possible. What Tim Scott goes on to say is, I was raised by a single mother, my brother and I. And thank God that was her attitude. And now I'm a United States Senator. You listen to these arguments. The arguments that they're concocting almost remind me of the arguments for segregation, for slavery in the past. They're not humane. They're not about the individual human being. They act like there's only one person, and it's that person's comfort that matters, the kind of life that they want to lead and so forth. No.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to levintv.com and subscribe now.